Hey guys, welcome back to Java Full Stack Made Easy session 56. In this session, we will be talking about the input and the output decorators in Angular. Previous session, if you remember, we spoke about the uh, adding elements into an array, binding the uh, checkboxes on an Angular. So in this session, we'll be talking about another important concept of Angular, that is the input and the output decorators. Fine. So before we go to the input and the output decorators, let me give you one simple example where exactly these decorators comes into picture, and where should be how things work in real time. Now, if you remember our HTML tags, like we create an image and then we give src is equal to, let's call it as maybe my image dot jpg, and then we give it as what the size and everything, right? Width or height and everything. So if suppose I give width is equal to 200 pixels, then what happens is it will check whether there is a my image.jpg available or not, and if it is available, then the width and height will be 200 pixels, and that particular image will be placed onto my HTML page, right? So that's what generally happens when we take any HTML tag. So in Angular, if you remember, any component that we are creating, like we had this component, if you remember in session 1, the app dash root component was there, right? Similarly, we created one more component. So let me just check what components I have created for you guys. So one was the app component, another one was the menu component, right? So I created a menu component as well. So similarly, there can be this is going to be app dash menu. So similarly, there can be more components that I can create. But while creating the components, if the component does not take properties like this, then there will be no use of those components, right? Because if this image was created without the source, then there is no use of this image tag at all, because every time if I add an image, a default image will be added, right? So the source actually allows me to add any image of my choice, right? So similarly, in this example, what I'm gonna do is I will be taking a component called as the address component. So this address component is gonna place the city and the state of the address. But while creating this component, address component, I don't know who is going to use my address component, but I know that the address contains state, city, pin code, anything that I like. Fine. So in this example, I'll be taking only two, that is city and the state. So I know that city and state will be there, and they will be placed, maybe they will be placed at the bottom or maybe at the top, somewhere wherever user wants to add an address component, he can add the address. When a user is adding address component, he has to give me the city and the state, and I'll be displaying that, right? But then there can be 10 different users, right? And one user, each user can have its own city and the state. If I only define the state and the city while creating the component itself, then this component will not be a reusable component, right? So who, suppose for example, I'm creating this address with a city, like say city Bangalore, and then state Karnataka, then this address component will be only helpful for those who live in the city Bangalore and the state Karnataka, right? So that's not how we generally create the components. Like this image, if it was created before only for, suppose for example, this image tag was created only for, let's say, google.jpg, that means every time you add an image, a Google's image will be added. So will you use such a component that adds the Google image all the time? You'd say no, I'll not be using such component, because you want the component to behave dynamically. So that's what we will be bringing up into our session, and we'll see how do we make our components more dynamic. So as I told you, here we will be focusing on the component called as the address component, and it will have two properties, the city property and the state property. So let's go ahead and understand the same with an example, and we will follow the same thing, that is the address containing the city and the state. So for that, obviously we would require to generate a new component. And if you remember, we have already discussed how do we create a component in Angular, that is by using the ng command. So now I will be generating a ng generate component. Ng-gc means generate component. You can completely write it as generate component, or you can use the shortcut as ng-gc then the component name. And I want to generate the component name as the address. So by doing this ng-gc address, obviously like I told you before, there will be 4 files that will be generated, right? In fact, there will be a css file getting generated, there will be a typescript file getting generated, there will be a spec.ts file generated, and lastly the app.module.typescript file that gets updated, right? So let's generate this ng generate component, the address component, and see that there are 4 files being created: the html, css, typescript, and spec, and then the app.module.typescript being updated. So we have the address component created for us. So address component is created. Now what I'm going to do is I will just see what is there in the address component. So by default the address component will contain only address works, and then the TypeScript contains nothing except the TypeScript data, right? So now what I want is I want to place this address component onto the main component, that is the app component. So how do we do that? This is let us check the selector for this. The selector is app-address. So suppose I want that to be placed on my app.html. So first of all, I'll just clean up everything that I have here. Let that be there. I want to place the app-address here. So I'm just simply going to do a app-address, and that should be added here. Now let's do a ng serve and see whether the address component gets added or not. So ng serve -o, that opens up the browser as well, so that we can see this see the result of this component. Fine. So you can see that address works. So that means the address component is added here. So I'm using this address component. Now what I'm gonna do is I want to place a city and state on the address. So let's see how do we do that. So I'll go to the address HTML, and here I'm gonna place the city, and then I will call it as Bangalore, and then the state, and I'll call it as Karnataka. Fine. So when I specify the state and the city, for the address it is Bangalore and Karnataka. So the city and the state for address is being placed to me. That looks good. But because I have taken the static values here, that means anybody who uses this address component, like for now app.html is using it, so anybody who uses this, they will always see this address of Bangalore and Karnataka, right? So my component is created by but my component is not uh, displaying the data dynamically. I'm not allowing the user to give things like this. I want the user to give me the city, whatever city the user likes, and then the state, whatever the state the user likes. For example, here I'm going to give the city as Pune, and then the state as Maharashtra, and then I save this again. So although I have given it as Pune and Maharashtra, but you can still see that the city is still Bangalore and it is Karnataka. So I have not allowed my user to perform things like this. So that's what I want to actually do to make my component dynamic and more reusable. So let's see how do we do this. How do we achieve this thing in Angular? So for that itself, we have to go to the address and then make use of the @input decorator. So let's understand how do we do that. So here, first of all, we know that there is a concept of data binding available for us. So what we generally do, we create variables like city, and here I'm going to give the city as Bangalore, and then the state as Karnataka. So that's what I'm giving. And on the address HTML, so instead of giving this, we give what? The city and then the state. That's what we give, right? So that's fine. So address.typescript contains Bangalore and Karnataka city state. So that will be added. So this is fine. Looks good. So if I change it here, that is let's say Pune and Maharashtra, that will be reflected there. That will be reflected here. But the thing is that I don't want to give it from the code part, right? I don't want to come to the address and change it. I actually want to change the same thing from here. So whatever I give here, that has to be placed there, not something which I am giving in the TypeScript. So how do we do this? Pretty simple now. Now that we already know that this is something that is actually bind to my app.html. So now what I can say is that this city is actually an input value. Okay, so it's coming from Angular core, and then you give the property name. So the property name is city here. That means whatever is given at the runtime. So similarly, what I'm gonna do is let's import that. Yeah, so now it is input. Okay, so one is city, another one is state. So these are the two values that I am expecting from the user. So let's give that and let's save it. Now I'll go to this HTML. Acha, let's go to the app.html. Now that I've given Pune and Maharashtra, let's change it as Mumbai and Maharashtra. Let's save it and now see the details. So you can see that it is Mumbai, Maharashtra. And now we have created this component in such a way that whatever city you like, you give that. Like for example, you want to give Bijapur, you give Bijapur, and then the state Karnataka you want to give, you give Karnataka. So my component is placed in such a way that now any value that I pass from app.html to while creating the address component, that value is reflected there. It is similar to what an image, right? If you remember, it is similar to an image. Whatever source you give, that image was placed, right? Similarly, whatever city and state you give, that city and state is placed using the address component. So this is how you make use of an input decorator. So generally an input decorator is used to accept the values from the parent. So who's the parent of this address? It is app root. So app root is giving the value to the address. That is why it is called as an input decorator. You're accepting, you're taking the values from the parent and giving it to the child, right? So this is the parent. App address, the app root is the parent, app address is the child of that. The parent is giving the values and the child app address is accepting those values and then displaying those same values here. Yeah, this is the value that I have given by default. If a user does not give anything, it will be Pune and Maharashtra. If a user gives it, then whatever user gives, that value will be there. That means if a user just uses something like this, since a component is a reusable one, so I can use the component multiple times. I have the app.address and the second address that I'm giving. So this let's call it as below one is default. So let's save it. So now you can see that the below one, the second one, the default one comes up with Pune and Maharashtra. That's because in the address, while creating the address component, I've given the default value as Pune and Maharashtra. So if you don't give any value, so it will take the default values as Pune, Maharashtra. But if you give any value of your choice, it will take all that value. For example, if you want to use this address once again and you want to give some other values here, like let's say Mumbai and Maharashtra, then it's all fine. So multiple times I'm using the address. You can see that one address takes Bijapur, Karnataka, another address takes Mumbai, Maharashtra, and then the last address takes the default value, that is Pune and Maharashtra. So this way you can make use of the input decorator, and I hope that it is completely clear to you. How do you create a component and how do you make use of the input decorator for uh, accepting the values from the parent. So let's call it as demo1 at the rate input. So first of all, for this what we did, we generated a component, right? So we did a ng generate component, right? So ng gc generate component. Address component is something that we generated for this example, and then app.html is something that I have changed here. So I'll go to my app.html. So multiple times I'm using the address component. So I'll give you that app.html, and the app.typescript remains the same. I did not change it. So but still I'm going to give you the app.typescript. It is as it is, like in the previous example, whatever I've done in the app.typescript, it remains the same. So there is no change in it, but still I'm giving you that. Then I have the address.html, right? So this is the address.html that I have, and lastly the address.typescript. Address.typescript. So the main decorator is present in here itself, the address.typescript. So let me just copy, done that. Fine. Now one more important point I would like to add with this example is that do not be confused that this is also city and this is also city. So can that be changed, and what is that which I am using here, right? Whether it is the city of this variable name or this, right? Can they be, they have to be same or they can be changed? If it is changed, what has to be used here, right? So that comes up into our mind. So let me give it a city test here, right? I save it, and then when I see on the on my HTML page, you can always see that the city is declared as Pune, Pune, Pune. That means, see, this input is city test. So whatever is written here, that is something you have to pass in here, that is city test. So if you pass that city test, then Bijapur will come up here. So you can see that Bijapur will come up. So city test is something that you are referring to. So whatever is written into this input decorator, that is something that will be referred into the parent. So whatever you write here, that is something that has to be taken into the parent. Hope you have understood that. So I'll be just removing that for now. I hope you will you understand that. Fine. So it's quite clear to you for this. So let me once again now think of something else now. So I have given an address and all that. So let's talk about one more decorator available into Angular, that is the output decorator. So sometimes the child actually wants to give the data to the parent, right? So in that case, what needs to be done? So how are we going to make use of the @ output? Fine. So why should we use the @ output decorator? There are some cases when a child component performs some actions, like maybe a click on a button or maybe submitting a form or selecting a value, the parent should be notified, and that notification is done using the @ output decorator. The @output decorator is used to send data from a child component to its parent component. So in this case, what we have done is that parent is actually sending the data to the child. Now if I want a vice versa case where a child component sends the data to the parent component, what needs to be done? So let us actually take a real-time example and then understand the @output decorator. Fine. So for that, what I'm gonna do is I will just be cleaning up everything that I have written here. Fine. So first thing is that I'll just be cleaning up the app.html. Let's clean up that, and the app.typescript as well. So where I have written the previous code which contained the details for skills and everything, right? The checkbox stuff. So let's remove that. Let's have a clean slate to understand everything. Now in the address component also, I'll just clean up everything that's written in address. Let's keep the address as it is. I'll not be using the address at all. So let's use some other component. So address.typescript, you just change it, no problem for me. And let's save all the files first. Fine. So I have a clean app.typescript and an app.html which doesn't have anything. So now what I'm gonna do is, if you remember, I created a student model here, right? So I'll be using that student model. So let me first tell you what exactly I'm thinking of and what exactly I'm trying to achieve. So let's go back to our drawing board and understand what I'm gonna achieve by implementing this. So we will have two components, right? So we will have an app dot typescript, the app component, and then we will have an add student component. Okay, So app student dot TypeScript, or just call it as there will be an app component, then there will be a add student component. So now in the previous example, the parent was actually sending the detail to the child, and that was done using an input decorator, if you remember that, right? Yeah, in that case it was not a add student, it was actually a address component, right? So let's take that as well so that you are not confused. So I had an app, and then there was one more child, that was address. And in the previous example, what was happening was this app component was sending the data to the address, whatever city or anything. So what I was doing was I was using a app dash address and then city equal to some city, right? Let's say Bangalore or something. So when I was doing this, at that time the parent component app was actually giving this value to address, and for that itself we use the at the rate input decorator. Now this add student, what it has to do is it has to notify the parent component upon something. Let's say when a student is added, at that time the parent has to be notified. That's what I'm thinking of. Whenever a user clicks on add student, the parent should know that child has added a new student. Fine. So in this example, what I'm gonna do is this app component will have a list of student, and the add component will add a new student, and that new student added, whenever a new student is added, this information has to be sent to the parent. Okay, so in the previous example, parent was sending the information to the child. Here child is sending the information to the parent. That is why in such cases we are going to make use of the at the rate output decorator. So we are actually performing a parent and child communication here. So let us implement this into our code. Okay, so for this, once again, what I would need, I would be needing a add student component. So let's add a new component called as add student component. So for that, once again, what I'm gonna do is I'll be creating a new terminal. One of the terminal already is running, that is running my ngserve. So let that component be there. I actually want the command prompt. Okay, so ng generate component, it is going to be a add student component. Okay, so I'm using a ng generate command that adds up a component, the add student component. So an add student component is added for me, right? So this is actually a child component of the app component itself, right? So in the add component, let me go to the add component and see what we are going to add in the add component. So in the TypeScript of this add component, I will be creating a, sorry, this is the spec.typescript. So I'll go to the TypeScript of this. So in this case, I want to add a new student. Okay, so for adding a new student, I will give the value on my own itself. I can create a form and then accept the value from the form and give it to the student as well, right? So if you remember the two-way data binding concept that we have used in our previous session, so even that can be done, right? So let's do that. So in this TypeScript, what I will have is I will be creating a student object that needs to be added to our uh, parent, that needs to be given to the parent. So let's go to the HTML. So add student. Here we will be requiring an input to add the student. So in the previous example, we already had this detail. We have already created this in our previous session. So I will go and copy the data from there. So day 55, I have already shown you that. So let's go to day 55, and there was this add student which I have already created. So in that case, I had this roll number and everything defined, and also I had this student data defined, right? So add student, this dot student dot push, and the student was created. So there was a student object created. Let's create that object. So here in the add student, so I want this add student, and that needs to be imported, right? So quick fix, add an import for this, and also I would need this, the add student will just add the student. So let's go here, and there will be a function called as add student, which is just gonna add the student. So it is the students dot push, right? So I don't want to push it to the array, so I don't have an array to push it, right? I have to send it to what? I have to send it to parent. So we'll discuss that later, how do we send it to the parent. So as for now I will just put it under the comment. Fine. So add student should add a comment, or maybe add a student, that means it has to send it to the parent. So as for now we'll leave it as it is. Then the HTML, let's copy that stuff here, the design part of this. The student contains four properties, right? So for that we need all the four input. So this add student, the entire stuff I will take it from here, and I will add it to the add student HTML. So here add student, everything will be designed. Fine. And this add student will be actually added to what? The parent, which is the app dot HTML, right? So here I'm gonna add the add student functionality, app dash add dash student. Okay, sorry, this should be this. And yeah, obviously, so if we want to know what is the selector, we can just go here and then you will see the selector. It is app dash add slash dash student. So that's what I have written here on the HTML. So this will be added to the parent, right? And on the parent, we should also have some list or something. So we'll be creating that later. Let us focus on this add student first. So this data will be created for us. So we have all the design added there. If you look at the form, how it looks like now, property student does not exist on add student. So yeah, first let's save everything so that the TypeScript and HTML, everything gets refreshed. So we have this add student, and we have the parent also. So on the parent, I'll say parent works, or let's say this is parent. So the parent component is also working here. So this is parent, and then there is a child component, add student, and everything that is working fine. So now that I have this add student created, now I have to send this details, whatever is filled in this HTML, add student HTML, whatever data is filled by the user, that has to be sent to the parent. So let us see how do we send it to the parent. In the previous example, I used the input decorator to receive the information from the parent. Here I have to use the output decorator to send the information, send the data to the parent. So for that, let's go ahead and use the @output decorator coming from Angular core. Okay, Angular core outputs. Let's import the same. Yeah, that should be imported now. Okay, for the output decorator, now what needs to be sent? An object has to be sent of type what? Of type student has to be sent. So let's call this as something. An event emitter has to be taken for this. So let's call it as student added, or added student. Okay, is equal to new event emitter. Again from Angular core, I'll take event emitter. And then this event emitter emits the student object. So student added dot student added, this dot student added dot emit this function. This emits what? The student object has to be sent. So this dot the student object which we have created here. So this should be sent to the parent. Now how will we get to know that this will be sent to the parent? So in parent, what we will be doing is uh, whenever a parent is placed, so we will receive this from the child, and we will display that. Okay, so let's do that. Fine. So I will go to the app.typescript here, and I should be receiving the detail. So a lot of students, more students can be added. So as of now I don't have any students, so let's create a students array. I will copy that students array. So if I have in my previous example, where I give the value, static values were given. So I already have this, right? The constructor is there, then the students array is there. So let's take that first. Okay, so these values I will take first. So these are dummy values I already have. The student array is there, the students values are there. So this will be there for us. And after that, what I'm gonna do is when the student is added, on student added, I want to do something. Fine. Uh, so let's see that the event is happening there, right? So whatever event is happening, that has to be taken. So let's go to the add student, and in the add student I have this student added. So this is my event that is happening, right? So I'll take this event, and I'll tell to my app.html that this event is happening, right? So upon this, I'll say when this event occurs, sorry, I think I've not copied it. Let's copy this and then put it here. When this event occurs, then you do something. Maybe you go for what, on student added, you write anything of your choice now, and then get the event. So we will say dollar event. So on this particular function, the details has to be added. That's what we are looking for, right? So what I will do now is on this particular function, I will just get whatever I am getting from the user, and then I will push it, right? So let's get this. I'll copy this and go to the TypeScript, and upon this particular function, the student added, where we are taking the event, what is being given to us there, we are getting a student of type student, right? So let's call it as of type any here, or we can give it as of type student also, because we have already defined it as student. So it is of type student, we can take that. And then what I can do is, whatever I am receiving, you just add that to the array. So this dot students dot push. Okay, what needs to be pushed? The student has to be pushed, right? So that should be displayed onto the HTML. And on the app.html, what I'm gonna do is I'll also be adding a ng for, so that all the details are displayed. So once again, I'll go to this, I will check on an HTML of this, I should have added the ng for and the student details, right? So I already have the table, and the data will be displayed here. So I'll copy this and put this into the app.typescript. So here, let's save it and see how it looks like on the browser. So all the details are there. Now this is a different component altogether. The add student component is different. So here I'm gonna add for name, any name, let's say Sachin, male, gender, some marks, let's say 99, some semester, maybe 1. So the moment I click on this add student, you can see that the entire data is actually given to the parent component, right? So parent component has an array in this example, and the child component is sending the student details to the parent component. So if I go back to my drawing board, now you can see that there is a component called as add student, where I am trying to add a new student. So that new student is added, and the same new student, whatever is added, is actually sent to the parent, where the list of student is displayed, and that new student gets reflected the moment I click on that particular button. So you can see that that is done using the output decorator. So let's go back to the code and once again understand what exactly is done in the output decorator. So you can see that if I go to my add student, so here I have created an output decorator. So whenever an event emitter, that is the student added, is uh, raised, if this event occurs, then emit what? Emit the current student object. Now what is that current student object? The current student object holds up all the values that I have entered into the add student HTML. So whatever values I have entered here, the moment I click on this add student, what should happen is the event has to be emitted. So whenever an add student is clicked, the event has to be emitted. So once the event is emitted, the detail has to be given to the parent. So you can see that the parent is tracking that here. So there is a display already given here. So when this component is taken, so if this event occurs, that is if you click on that particular button, what should happen? This function has to be executed. And what this function is doing, this event is actually receiving the entire object. So you can go here, app.typescript, you can see that it is receiving the student, and whatever is received there, you push it to the array, which array? Students array, which contains the dummy data, that is the default data. So this is how you can make use of the output decorator, right? So I hope that this realistic example made you understand how are we going to share the data among the parent and child. So in the first example, the parent was sending the data to the child through the property by using the input decorators, whereas now the child is sending the data to the parent through the event by using the output decorator. So in this example, you can think of this example as what? Think of it as a child component. Think of the child component, which is add student, as a form, uh, where a clerk is accepting the details of the students, and the parent component as a class teacher who who maintains the list of the students. So the moment clerk gets a new student, the clerk shares that information to the class teacher so that the class teacher gets the updated values, and that data sharing is done using the output decorator. Hope the things are pretty much clear and straightforward to you. So let me send you these details onto the repository. So first thing, I'll be sharing you the model. Obviously the model does not change. I have the model as it is. Fine. So let's go back to day 56 now. So day 56, the output decorator demo2 output decorator. So that output decorator, first you take the student dot model dot typescript. It's just a model, right? Then we have the child component. The what I have done for this is I generated a new component. So let me write the ng generate component. Add student is something which I generated. So this is my app dot yeah, let what did I copy? I copied the model. Then let's copy the add student dot typescript. Add dash student dot typescript. This is the add student dot typescript. Then add dash student dot html. Okay, so the student HTML basically contains nothing, just allows the user to enter all the detail, and then there is a add student, and upon click of the add student, the main thing comes up, that is the event emitter is created and the event is emitted. So two new things are given here, and emitting the event on click of the button, and then event emitter is created. Fine. Then comes the parent component, the app.html first. So the app.html is actually triggering or waiting for the child event to occur. So you can see that this only displays all the details that I have given. The main thing is here, the app dash add student. So what a parent is waiting for? Parent is waiting for this event to be emitted, and when does this event emits? The moment a user clicks on the add student. So whenever a user clicks on the add student, this event is emitted, and we are tracking that event into a on student added, and you can see that on student added in app.typescript. So in the app.typescript, you can notice this particular function on student added. You receive the student object, and whatever student object you have received, push that student object into the current array, which is these values. Okay, it is as simple as that. Fine. So done this. Hope the concept is clear to you. If it is not, then you just visit this particular video and revise it and look for it for multiple times. And obviously this is not that difficult, it is pretty much easy and straightforward. The at the rate input decorator is used when the parent wants to communicate with the child. That means the parent wants to send the data to the child, use the at the rate input decorator. And if the child wants to send the data to the parent, you use the at the rate output decorator. So that's how the parent and child communication occurs in Angular. Hope things are clear. So if it is clear to you and if you're enjoying this series, do share it with your friends and subscribe to my channel so that I get more subscribers and more participants get the chance to learn from me. Thank you. See you in the next video.